Our story begins in the divine realm, where a surprising encounter unfolds. God personally apologizes to a young boy named Chuya Mochizuki, a 15-year-old high schooler whose life was tragically cut short. It turns out Chuya's death was the result of a divine mistake, a misfired lightning strike. Acknowledging his error, God offers Chuya a rare second chance to live again in a completely different world filled with fantasy, magic, and danger. Chuya, being surprisingly calm about his fate, agrees to the deal. But before his new life begins, he makes a few specific requests. At the top of his list is his smartphone, something Chuya doesn't want to part with. He asks for it to be functional in the new world and powered by magic. God agrees, explaining that the phone will also allow them to stay in touch whenever needed. With preparations complete, Chuya is transported to his new life and soon receives his first magical phone call from the Almighty, explaining that the device is now fully configured for his journey ahead. Chuya's first challenge in this unfamiliar land is to earn money. While wandering the town, he meets an elderly tailor who trades his school uniform for some coins and local attire. This modest exchange marks the start of his new journey. Later, while exploring further, Chuya witnesses a pair of ruffians attempting to rob some young girls. Without hesitation, he steps in and handles the situation with ease. The girls he rescues introduce themselves as Elsa and Linza Silueska, sisters who happen to be adventurers. Noticing that Chuya seems new to the area, they kindly guide him to the Silver Moon Inn, where they also live. They offer him help in settling in, even inviting him to join their adventuring team and aiding him in signing up with the local guild. Now part of their party, Chuya begins taking on guild missions to earn a living. On his first outing, he runs into a language barrier, unable to understand the local tongue. Thankfully, Linza steps in to help translate and teach him the basics. The mission begins, and the sisters show off their skills, Elsa relying on brute strength and Linza wielding magic. Together with Chuya, they manage to complete their task successfully and earn a reward. With some experience under his belt, Chuya begins exploring his own abilities. To his surprise, he's not just strong, he also has access to powerful magic. In this world, most people can use up to 3 types of elemental magic, but thanks to God's blessing, Chuya is able to master every known element, including the rare and dangerous dark magic. He tries out his first spell, a teleportation portal, which allows him to instantly travel to places he has previously visited. The girls are stunned by his abilities, especially when they realize just how naturally he commands every magical element. Elsa, however, remains suspicious, sensing that there's more to Chuya than meets the eye. Later that day, Mika brings along a new girl from the cafe named Ia. When she learns that Chuya is from another world, she gets curious about the kinds of food from his homeland and wants to add some of them to her menu. With her smartphone, she looks up how to make ice cream, and together they whip up a batch that everyone ends up loving. The next day, the group takes on a task to deliver a letter to the royal capital. During the journey, they come across a scene where a samurai girl is surrounded by a group of men. She fends them off using impressive martial arts skills, but in a brief lapse, one of them tries to attack her from behind. Chuya and his friends jump in just in time to help. This is when they meet Yeiko Kono, a samurai from the village of Isshin. She had traveled far in hopes of getting stronger but ended up broken hungry after losing her money. Feeling bad for her, Chuya invites her to eat with them. In return for the kindness, Ye offers her sword and joins the party on their journey. As they carry on with the mission, Linza hands Chuya a magic book to help him grow stronger. One spell he learns lets him pull off someone's clothes, which he jokingly tests on one of the girls, even wondering if it works on undergarments. This guy clearly has a mischievous streak. During their travels, they stumble upon a caravan being attacked by monsters. They jump in to help the guards, but the monsters keep coming. Eventually, they realize a summoner is behind the chaos. Chuya uses a spell called Slip to take the summoner down and rescue the caravan. One of the people in the caravan is seriously wounded, but Chuya uses a healing spell named Cure Heal to save his life. They soon learn that the caravan belongs to Sushi, a noble girl and the Duke's daughter. She's also the niece of King Tristan. Out of gratitude, she asks them to escort her safely to the capital. Upon arrival, Duke Alfred thanks the group for protecting his daughter. He also explains why she had been traveling with so little security. Sushi had been trying to find a way to cure her mother's blindness by following in her grandfather's footsteps. Although she hadn't succeeded, fate brought her to Chuya, who happened to know a healing spell that worked. Chuya manages to cure her mother's eyesight, winning the Duke's respect and gratitude. As a reward, Duke Alfred gifts them 40 platinum coins, worth around 40 million yen, and noble medals, which will allow them to travel freely and pass through official checkpoints without hassle. After the heartfelt moment, the group finally completes their letter delivery. Ye decides to stay with the team and continue her training. While exploring the royal capital, the group takes time to enjoy the sights. During their stroll, they come across a little fox girl who's lost and looking for her sister. She's noticeably anxious. Being the kind-hearted lead, Chuya offers to help her locate her missing sister. After some searching, they manage to reunite the siblings, earning their heartfelt thanks. It feels like this won't be the last time they cross paths. Later that evening, the group prepares to head back to the adventurers' village. Before setting off, Chuya makes a quick stop to purchase a coat said to offer protection against magical damage. Oddly enough, the garment doesn't do much in battle, but it does seem to increase the girl's interest in him. With the next quest ahead, Chuya teams up with the girls once more. Chuya brings up the idea of hunting megalamos, a type of creature the girls aren't too fond of. These monsters are covered in a strange slime that can dissolve clothing on contact, a fact Chuya finds amusing. When that plan doesn't work out, the team takes a more routine assignment involving monster extermination. They venture into a set of ancient ruins and encounter a headless dark warrior. The enemy isn't too strong, and with solid teamwork, they defeat it. Since they're already inside the ruins, they decide to look for hidden loot. Chuya uses a skill called Search to detect a large object deep within the structure. Digging further into the dungeon, they uncover ancient writings, blueprints, perhaps, of a city or weapon from a bygone age. Chuya snaps some pictures to document everything. Not long after, he discovers a glowing orb that looks like an old relic. The moment he picks it up, an ancient crystal monster awakens. The group heads topside to face this new threat. What's odd is that the creature isn't harmed by physical or magical attacks, it's nearly invincible. During the fight, Elsa gets wounded, but Chuya quickly heals her using his magic. As the battle intensifies, the monster seems to grow more powerful. Chuya then thinks of a new strategy. He uses the apport ability to extract the glowing sphere at the creature's core. Once separated, they destroy the sphere, which finally causes the creature to collapse. This strange opponent clearly isn't just any regular monster. After the battle, Chuya reports the event to the Duke and asks if he's ever seen such beings or writings. The Duke admits he hasn't and notes that the texts seem much older than any known records. With few clues to work with, Chuya offers to help with further research. Before he can return with more findings, urgent news arrives. Chuya's brother, the king of the human realms, has been poisoned. The Duke takes Chuya with him to the royal capital. After a brief journey, they reach the palace where they're welcomed by Count Bolzer, whose overly cheerful attitude about the king's condition raises suspicions. Chuya repeatedly tells the Duke that there's no point in saving him. Just then, Chuya steps in and casts the spell Slip, delivering a swift dose of instant karma, and we all know what happens after that. The two men soon arrive at the royal chambers, where the entire royal family, including King Tristan's daughter, is present. Without delay, Chuya uses his magic to cleanse the poison from the king's body, instantly earning the respect and trust of the nobles around. The ladies present, especially the princess, can't help but be charmed by Chuya's looks and heroism. Once he's recovered, King Tristan demands to know who poisoned him and immediately suspects the individual responsible for serving the wine. Suspicion falls on one of the servants connected to Arma, specifically her sister, who Chuya had once helped when she was lost. Convinced of her innocence, Chuya begins a detailed investigation. Fortunately, the scene where the poisoning happened hasn't been disturbed. Putting his abilities to work, Chuya begins a search and soon narrows down the list of potential suspects. He gathers everyone who was near the king when the poisoning occurred. To clear the ambassador's name, he instructs General Leon to drink the same wine that had been served at the banquet. The wine turns out to be clean, clearing the ambassador of all blame. Chuya then pours the same wine into the king's goblet and asks Bolzer to drink it instead. Bolzer hesitates, growing visibly uneasy and starting to act suspiciously. Eventually, Chuya uncovers that all of the king's drinking vessels were laced with poison, and Bolzer's nervous reaction confirms his guilt. He is quickly restrained, and Chuya gains even more admiration, especially from the princess. As a sign of gratitude, King Tristan thanks Chuya and wonders how he could ever repay such a debt. That's when Princess Yumina steps forward and boldly announces her wish to marry Chuya. She sees great promise in him, as well as genuine kindness. But things take a surprising turn. Yumina is only 12 years old. Chuya gently declines, explaining that she's too young to marry and that he himself is just 15, choosing instead to wait until he's at least 18. The king understands but encourages them to get to know one another. To help build that bond, Yumina is allowed to join Chuya's adventuring group and travel with him. Later on, Chuya receives a message from God, congratulating him on his engagement. As the group prepares for new missions, Yumina meets the rest of the team and explains her proposal. She also suggests that they all join the guild together and start accepting official quests. Although many doubt her ability because she's a princess, Yumina surprises everyone. She's not just capable of fighting, she also possesses summoning magic, allowing her to call forth powerful creatures in battle. The group later takes on a mission involving furry monsters, and they all work together efficiently. Yumina proves herself in combat and helps complete the task successfully, earning them a solid reward. Afterward, she teaches Chuya how to use summoning magic, and he manages to summon the legendary White Emperor Tiger, said to be one of the most powerful magical beasts in existence. At first, the mighty tiger resists the commands of our young hero, Chuya. However, Chuya calmly uses his magical power to form a bond. Overwhelmed by the intense energy, the tiger yields and agrees to join him. With the pact sealed, Chuya names the creature Kohaku, symbolizing the white tiger of the king. Kohaku pledges to stay by Chuya's side no matter what, but Chuya worries the tiger's large form might scare people. To prevent trouble, Kohaku cleverly takes the shape of a small kitten. This adorable version immediately wins over the girls in the group, who treat him like a cute stuffed toy and refuse to let go. A fresh chapter of adventure begins with Kohaku now part of the team, although the group seems slightly annoyed with Chuya. Their next journey brings them to a bizarre castle that's central to Chuya's favorite kind of quest. The castle belonged to a researcher who specialized in slimes. Once inside, the group encounters multiple varieties of slime creatures. In one of the rooms, they stumble upon a library packed with detailed records about slimes. Suddenly, the girls are surrounded by slimes, which causes their clothes to tear apart. Elsa reacts swiftly and smacks one for ogling. Chuya ends up indebted to the slimes after the encounter. As they continue exploring, more rare slimes appear but are quickly eliminated by the girls. Eventually, they reach the lab, where they discover the body of the scientist who made the slimes. It turns out the man had created them out of loneliness, designing these slimes to mimic the appearance of women in an effort to fulfill his desire for companionship. The next day, Chuya and Ye stroll through town, where they meet a lost child who refuses to speak to anyone, even Ye. Kohaku, in kitten form, gently comforts her and gains her trust. Chuya then uses his phone to help reunite the girl with her mother, leaving Ye amazed by his skills. Later, Ye opens up about her hometown, a village of samurai, and her missing brother who vanished during training. She praises him as one of the kingdom's finest warriors. Her admiration hints at her feelings for Chuya, implying he might be just as incredible, or even more so. Soon after, Linza asks Chuya for help with a new magic spell, but she can't read the language it's written in. Chuya hands her special glasses that allow her to understand it. Linza gives the spell a try, but her limited magic power causes her to falter and tire out. To support her, Chuya channels some of his energy into Linza, making the spell easier to manage. Thanks to his help, Linza eventually masters the spell and strengthens her abilities. To wrap up the day, Chuya heads out for some shopping with Elsa, who finds herself drawn to a dress shop. She hesitates, thinking the clothes won't suit her since she doesn't see herself as attractive. Chuya reassures her, insisting the outfit would suit her perfectly, and ends up gifting it to her. Once she tries it on, the dress highlights her beauty, earning her praise from the other girls. Not long after, Chuya and Ina are called to the royal castle by the king himself, who intends to appoint them to noble ranks and give them roles within the government. Their presence at this meeting is not optional. Chuya eventually decides to attend, but turns down the official position offered to him. Impressed by Chuya's modesty and character, the king chooses to reward him in a different way by giving him a luxurious mansion, which he can share with his future bride. Chuya, however, plans to share the home with all the girls in his group. While initially unsure about the idea, since the mansion was meant for a wedded couple, his heartfelt words persuade them to stay, and Ina agrees with his decision. Later that evening, the princess pulls the group aside for a private conversation. Whatever is discussed, it causes everyone to blush. On top of the mansion, a team of servants and butlers is assigned to assist with all their needs. Shortly after, Duke Alfred arrives with Sue to offer congratulations on the engagement. The Duke then shares a major revelation with Chuya. In this world, it's perfectly acceptable for men to have multiple wives. If Chuya desires, he can marry all the girls in his group. To that end, the Duke even offers Sue's hand in marriage. He also requests that Chuya travel to the capital of Mismead with Ambassador Olga to finalize matters regarding a peace treaty. Chuya agrees, and the whole group sets off on the journey. While traveling, they enjoy their time together, camping under the stars, until they're suddenly ambushed by bandits hiding among the trees. Fighting them head-on would be risky, but Chuya demonstrates one of his newest abilities, a ranged strike activated through his phone. With just the enemy's locations, he paralyzes them all in one move, swiftly ending the threat. The next day, the group arrives in a town. One of the guards accompanying Ambassador Olga appears smitten with her and wants to express his feelings. Chuya discreetly helps him pick out a meaningful gift to impress her. As the journey continues and they approach the next destination, the group senses a strange energy, feeling as though someone is watching them. They are suddenly transported to a shadowy area where the atmosphere is eerily quiet, until the local wildlife begins to panic. It turns out a dragon is wreaking havoc near the village. Chuya and the girls track the beast and manage to lure it away from the populated area. Chuya launches multiple powerful attacks, but the creature's thick armor makes it difficult to do any real damage. From the shadows, a mysterious blade strikes, wounding the creature's eye. No one knows who threw it. Taking this opportunity, the group launches a coordinated attack, and Linza deals the finishing blow by severing the dragon's wings, stopping it from escaping. Just as things seem to settle, another, more imposing dragon arrives. This one is the leader, known as the Red Dragon. Rather than attack, he approaches peacefully to offer an apology, explaining that his comrade had acted out of line. These dragons, it turns out, are not hostile by nature. Moved by the bravery and strength shown during the battle, the younger dragons now respect Chuya and pledge not to interfere with him. That night, soldiers work tirelessly to restore the damaged town while the weary heroes rest, with Chuya eventually dozing off on Yumina's lap. It appears there was a playful competition among the girls to see who'd get to sit closest to him. As a token of gratitude, the townspeople gift Chuya the dragon's tooth, a rare and valuable material that will prove useful in crafting a powerful weapon later on. The following day, the group travels to the royal capital of Mismeg. There, they are received by King Jamuka, a formidable figure with the body of a tiger. Yamina quickly updates him on recent events and stresses the importance of a friendly alliance between their lands. As the king reads a letter from the princess, his attention shifts to Tuya. He's heard the rumors of the dragon slayer and senses an immense power hidden beneath Tuya's calm demeanor. Intrigued, the king proposes a duel. The arena fills with anticipation as nobles urge Tuya to show his true strength. Once the match begins, Tuya cleverly makes the king lose his footing and wins with ease. Amused and not one to back down, the king demands a rematch, this time with no tricks allowed. As the second round starts, the king reveals his combat technique, Axel, a speed-based skill perfected over many years. The clash becomes intense, but Tuya quickly masters the technique mid-fight and defeats the king once again. Humbled, King Jamuka praises Tuya's strength and admits he's gained a new perspective. That evening, celebrations are held, and the girls don stunning dresses. Tuya captures the moment with a photo to cherish the memory. The king, intrigued by the device used to take the picture, asks if Tuya can do the same for him. Later, as Tuya rests, a small teddy bear suddenly appears, carried by a woman with a gothic style. Her name is Lean, a 600-year-old fairy living in the castle. At first, this older fairy believes she's far more powerful than our main character because of her magical skills, especially her talent for controlling objects without life. But Tuya, as expected, surprises her by copying her magic, and even improving it. Impressed by his talent, the fairy changes her attitude and declares Tuya as her student, deciding to stick with him for the rest of his days. The next morning, Tuya uses the dragon's fang he obtained to forge a special weapon. Thanks to his unique power to build whatever he imagines, he creates a pistol and matching bullets. Soon after, he crafts another set for the girls traveling with him. As they explore the city, Tuya once again feels like someone is spying on them. He quickly sets a trap and catches the observers. It turns out to be Lapis and Cecil, undercover agents from King Belfast sent to keep tabs on the princess. Realizing they've been exposed, the spies admit defeat, but Tuya chooses to let them off without causing a scene. He's glad to know that the spies aren't enemies. What follows is a major event. Both kingdoms unite to sign a peace treaty and begin a strong alliance. Afterward, the group finally returns to Tuya's mansion, their mission complete. Tuya gets back to his usual hobby of recreating items from Earth, like a bicycle. This causes a fun commotion, everyone wants to try it, leading to playful races and a few crashes. Alfred asks if Tuya can make more, so he heads into town to shop for parts. On his way, Tuya hears a girl being attacked by thieves. Without hesitation, he uses his weapon to save her. The girl tells him she has no family and no one to care for her. Feeling sympathy for her, Tuya brings her to his mansion and offers her a job as a maid. Meanwhile, Lion walks around the city with Olga. Although he seems nervous and too shy to show his feelings, their friends, Yamina, Sushi, Arma, and even King Jamuka, notice and want to help. The king, curious and bored, disguises himself and sneaks out to watch them. Just then, some crooks start stealing from a fruit vendor. Lion tries to stop them, but the group is too big. Tuya and the Tiger King step in to deal with the thieves, cutting short Lion's romantic outing. They tease him about his feelings for Olga, loud enough for her to hear. Fortunately, she smiles and accepts his confession, becoming his girlfriend. Back at the mansion, the butler informs Tuya of some unexpected guests. Lean and Charlotte show up, still investigating a creature they faced earlier. Lean brings up the crystal beast, known as Phrase, an incredibly dangerous being capable of global destruction. It's clear they'll need to be prepared if it ever shows up again. The creature our main character had encountered turned out to be the weakest of its kind. Apparently, there are even more powerful ones wandering about. An elder fairy shares this with Tuya and tells him she plans to drop by more frequently. She also asks a major favor from him, relying on his vast range of abilities. Lean then shares her wish to journey to the land of the samurais, specifically to Isshin, Yi's hometown, where there are ancient ruins she hopes to examine. Tuya isn't sure how they'll get there, since his teleportation magic has its limits. But Lean teaches him a unique spell that lets him view someone's memories by touching heads with them. This memory-sharing magic allows him to accurately recall a place and travel there. So, Tuya links minds with Yi, views her memories, and is then able to teleport. They instantly head to Isshin, only to find it nearly abandoned because of a war with a neighboring nation. Curious about what's really going on, they pay a visit to Yi's relatives, who reveal that her father and brother are on the front lines. Wasting no time, Tuya teleports everyone to the battlefield, where they witness an army of lifeless, puppet-like soldiers being remotely controlled, marching toward the fortress. Tuya and the girls rush to the fortress, where they reunite with Yi's brother, Jutaru. They try to offer assistance but quickly realize they're completely surrounded. Tuya analyzes the horde using his magical smartphone and learns that one strong attack could eliminate them all. He pinpoints every enemy location and unleashes a long-range blast, just like the one he used during their earlier ambush, wiping out the opposing soldiers in one strike. The group then meets Yi's father and the commanding officer, Ieyasu, who thank Tuya for his help. With Yumina present, she boldly announces Chuya as her fiancé, which stirs some jealousy among the other girls, especially Lin, who oddly starts giving off dark vibes. Just then, Tsubaki, a servant of Kusaka Masanobu, one of Takeda's top 4 generals, arrives. She carries a confidential message stating that their leader has been captured and is being held for ransom. Of course, Chuya has no intention of giving in and decides to go after the captors directly. To sneak in, they use an invisibility spell, the same kind Lin uses to hide her fairy wings. The mission is planned for the night, giving them cover as they scout the area. However, Chuya's teleportation fails due to a protective barrier placed by Kansukai. Meanwhile, Lin is clearly enjoying the night air, pulling small jokes on Tsubaki. The fairy seems to be growing bolder by the moment. Eventually, the rescue group reaches the prison where Nobuharu is being held. They manage to rescue the leader along with the rest of the captives. Afterward, they wipe out a major part of the enemy forces and finally come face to face with the main villain behind all the chaos. This enemy possesses a magical gem embedded in his left eye that grants him tremendous power. The stone gives him control over non-living objects, allowing him to raise an entire army. But our young hero uses his apport technique to extract the stone and destroys it, ending the threat. With that, the battle comes to an end, and the group sets off toward the ruins of Iruya. Nobuharu informs them that this location is beneath the ocean, close to a nearby island. Chuya then uses his teleportation ability to take everyone there for a well-earned day by the seaside. It looks like the group, including the royal family and their staff, can finally enjoy some downtime. The men engage in a swimming competition, while the girls have fun playing beach volleyball. Chuya stands back, snapping a photo of the girls to remember the moment. Still, he hasn't forgotten his main purpose, finding the Iruya ruins hidden just off the coast. Lin decides not to join him, not wanting to get soaked. So Chuya heads into the waters alone. The lovable bear tries to follow but is quickly swept back to the shore by the current. Chuya eventually reaches the ruins but forgets one crucial fact: he can't breathe underwater. On his first try, he nearly drowns. When he returns, he tells Lin he located the ruins but couldn't investigate further due to the lack of oxygen. Neither Charlotte nor the Elder Fairy knows any magic to help with underwater breathing. Luckily, Kohaku comes up with an idea. He advises Chuya to summon the Black Emperor, a creature that might help him survive underwater. This creature turns out to be 2 personalities in one body, and they aren't thrilled about serving Chuya or forming any kind of pact. They insist he fight them first. As always, Chuya gets clever. He uses a spell to make them slip and tires them out with his rubber bullet gun trick. Eventually, the Black Emperor gives in and agrees to the pact, accepting Chuya as their master. They reveal their names, Kokuyu and Sango. With their help, Chuya can now breathe underwater and begins exploring the ruins. Inside, he discovers a portal that responds to his magic and transports him to a mysterious garden. There, he meets a strange girl named Francesca, who, oddly enough, isn't wearing anything underneath her dress. Francesca greets him in a rather odd way, but Chuya remains respectful and tells her to cover herself. Once she does, she explains that this place is called the Garden of Babylon, built by Dr. Regina 5,000 years ago. She also explains a test created by the professor, one that involved Francesca deliberately dressing that way to see if Chuya would act inappropriately. Had he failed, she would have thrown him out. But because Chuya kept his composure, he passed the test, and now the garden officially belongs to him. Apparently, Dr. Regina had predicted 5,070 years ago that a powerful traveler would come and inherit the place. In this scene, we discover that not only is there a garden, but it's part of a system of floating islands, each with its own special use. This particular area serves as a medical zone, filled with healing herbs and labs designed to treat any illness. Chuya decides to bring the girls over so they can explore this unique place. Once they arrive, the first thing the girls want to know is how Chuya came to know Francesca. She casually introduces herself as his wife, which sparks instant outrage from Chuya's female companions, who don't hold back in expressing their disapproval. Following that, the girls quickly call a private meeting. Yumina brings up the discussion they once had when moving into the mansion. Back then, Yumina had asked the other girls how they felt about Chuya, and although flustered, they admitted to liking him. Aware that polygamy is accepted in this world, Yumina invited them to consider becoming Chuya's brides too. Though hesitant, they asked for time to think and promised to share their feelings with him eventually. Back in the garden, Chuya talks with Francesca about the other floating islands. She explains that although she knows of them, she doesn't actually have access to the locations or full knowledge about them. However, one final step remains for Chuya to officially become the master of Babylon Garden. He must complete the registration. Francesca seals this by kissing him, which finalizes his control over the garden. There was, of course, another way to complete the registration, but it was far too inappropriate to even consider. With the process complete, the girls aren't thrilled, especially Linza, who storms over to confront Chuya. But then she does something unexpected. She confesses her feelings and kisses him, saying she wants to be one of his wives too. After all the events at Babylon Garden, Chuya brings Francesca to the mansion and presents her as a new maid. Still, there's tension with Yumina, who's frustrated that 2 other girls kissed Chuya before she had the chance to give him his first. To calm her down, Chuya gives her a hug and a kiss. This kiss is different though. Unlike the others, this one comes from Chuya himself and is filled with emotion. Linza, who had been using a stealth spell to stay hidden, reappears and asks Chuya if he would accept her as a bride as well. He agrees, provided both girls are okay with it, and they all happily go to rest. The following morning, Elsa and Yi wake Chuya with a challenge. They're both upset and want to duel him. He agrees, saying if they win, they can ask him for a favor. What they really want is for Chuya to hear their proposal about marriage. But instead of just asking, they want to prove themselves in battle. Yi makes the first move, and Elsa quickly joins in. Chuya evades their attacks and fires rubber bullets at Yi. Then he focuses on Elsa, knocking her down. But as he lines up his next shot, he realizes he's out of ammo. That split second of distraction costs him the fight, and the girls manage to beat him. With their victory, they finally confess they want to marry him too. Chuya, overwhelmed, asks them for a little time to sort through everything. After everything settles, Chuya makes his way back to Babylon Gardens, where Francesca plays him a message that Dr. Regina had left behind. It becomes clear that the doctor, much like her creation, had quite the eccentric personality. For over 5,000 years, she had been developing machines with the goal of defeating the Fries. Babylon itself had become a fortress designed to bring victory over them, and Dr. Regina, aside from her intellect, also possessed the rare ability to foresee events. She anticipated Chuya would eventually arrive at her sanctuary, so she left behind a recording to warn him about a looming threat. Still, thanks to her foresight, they also learned that everything is likely to turn out well. Once Chuya finishes watching the message, he finds himself needing to make a serious decision regarding his romantic relationships. To seek guidance, he visits God, who has been observing the happenings in the world. Unfortunately, the divine being offers no real advice. Just then, the goddess of love appears and encourages Chuya to trust his feelings and make a choice that brings happiness to everyone involved. She tells him that if his feelings for all of them are genuine, and they feel the same, then choosing them all isn't wrong. Chuya returns home and brings the 4 girls together to explain his decision. He tells them he won't be marrying any of them just yet. Being only 15, he asks them to honor the customs of his land and wait until he turns 18. The girls, understanding and devoted, agree to his request and happily become his fiancées. Watching from outside the window, Francesca, Lean, and Charlotte observe the moment. The android reveals that, based on Regina's future insight, Chuya is destined to marry these 4 and eventually add 5 more wives to his life, making a total of 9. Later, Chuya heads into town to purchase engagement rings for each girl. Along the way, he encounters a peculiar boy named Andy, a foreigner who seems friendly enough but carries an air of mystery about him. The following day, Chuya and his future brides, now proudly wearing their rings, embark on a monster hunting mission. They succeed with ease, taking down tough, rocky beasts, and earn promotion to first-class adventurers. Afterward, Chuya reconnects with Lean, who shares her plan to locate the transportation circles that lead to Babylon's islands. These circles hold the key to unlocking ancient wisdom from Regina's writings and the technology she created. However, Chuya doesn't seem too eager to dive into that right away. Suddenly, he receives a divine call. God reaches out to check in on how his new life with his fiancées is going. The goddess of love is also present, practically bursting with joy over the rings he gave them. She tells him to brace himself, because from this moment forward, his life will be overflowing with love. Meanwhile, the girls are genuinely happy to be chosen as his partners. They all appreciate the efforts Chuya makes to keep them smiling, believing that in a true partnership, everyone should support each other and work to make one another happy. Each of the girls is trying to make Chuya happy in her own unique way. Yi starts things off by taking him back to her village, hoping to give him a break from his constant work and show him some emotional care. She asks if they can walk together hand in hand, and Chuya, ever the gentleman, gladly agrees. Later, Chuya heads to visit the king, this time with Yamina by his side. She's curious about how things are going between everyone. The king, on the other hand, is getting impatient. He wants to see his grandchildren already. This irritates Yamina enough that she ends up smacking her father to shut him up. Not long after, Sushi shows up to offer her congratulations on Chuya and Yi's engagement. The way she looks at Chuya makes it clear she's hoping she'll become his bride too. After wrapping up her royal visit, Chuya meets up with a group of friends, only to find out they're struggling financially. The town has lost its appeal and tourists have stopped coming. Chuya quickly realizes the problem is the town's lack of attractions. His solution? Build hot springs. It doesn't take long for his idea to catch fire. Soon, people are flocking to the newly built spa for some rest and relaxation. During the grand opening, Lean shows up, thrilled to share some news. She's located another Babylon ruin. The group wastes no time and sets off toward the desert where the ruins lie. But before they get there, they spot a terrifying flying beast, called a Fries, attacking people below. Without hesitation, the group jumps into action, but fighting something in the air proves nearly impossible. Chuya senses this could turn deadly. That's when Andy, the white-haired boy who appeared at the end of the last season, shows up. He easily takes down the Fries, revealing not just some hidden powers, but also that he may be stronger than Chuya. Andy seems to know what Fries are, but before Chuya can ask anything, he disappears. The people they rescue turn out to be adventurers who were freeing slaves. The collars on the former slaves are embedded with personal data and act as tracking devices. Removing these collars is painful and risky. But Chuya, without hesitation, uses his power to safely take them off, giving those people a chance at freedom again. He even offers them a place to stay at the mansion while they get back on their feet. Meanwhile, Lin remains curious about Endy and presses Chuya for more info. Chuya explains that he simply helped Endy register with the guild so he could earn some money. As thanks, Endy gave Chuya an ancient coin, one Francesca later reveals to be over 5,000 years old. Lin begins to feel suspicious. She's puzzled by why this young man possesses such a rare coin, how he knows so much about the Fras, and something else catches her eye: he's wearing a scarf even though it's hot outside. It might not be important, but it definitely stands out to her. As a result, the group sees this mysterious individual as someone worth watching closely rather than ignoring. At this point, Chuya and the others are unsure how they'll defend themselves if the creatures were to launch a full-scale attack. That's when Francesca shares a critical detail. On the Babylon Islands, there's a hidden facility where powerful humanoid machines, designed by Dr. Regina, are stored. These machines were built specifically to combat such threats. Chuya is thrilled at the idea and is determined to locate this facility. Eventually, the group arrives at ancient ruins. Chuya activates a portal and is transported to another island, where he meets Rosetta, an android girl much like Francesca. She presents him with a playful and rather awkward challenge: he must guess the color of her underwear without moving from where he stands. Chuya tries several approaches to figure it out, until he finally resorts to using an ability that lets him see through objects. To his surprise, he discovers she isn't wearing anything. This earns him a victory, and as a reward, Rosetta kisses him and grants him access to Babylon's workshop. This advanced workshop has incredible capabilities. It can manufacture weapons and even create enhanced replicas. Chuya gives it a shot and successfully replicates his own weapon, finding it's even more powerful than before. He begins planning to craft one for each of his wives. He recalls Francesca mentioning that the facility was also involved in producing machines to fight the Fras. Rosetta confirms she assisted the professor with building those combat models. However, to start production, they still need to retrieve the blueprints, likely stored with the robots in the facility's warehouse. Shifting focus, Chuya establishes a cafe in town, doubling as a reading spot. His goal is to offer employment opportunities to the former slaves they've freed, and things seem to be going smoothly. One of the rescued individuals, the youngest among them, shares an interesting piece of family history. His grandfather once mastered a rare magical art, gravity magic. Sadly, the boy himself can't use magic, lacking the natural talent for it. Later that day, Chuya heads out with Yamina to hunt a dangerous monster. It's a great chance to test their combat skills and perhaps earn a promotion. As they prepare to take on a massive crab-like creature, the guild receptionist stops them briefly and asks if Chuya would consider donating a book to the guild library. The title is The Order of the Rose, and it's apparently a favorite among the local women. With that taken care of, they head out, and during the battle, Yamina strikes a powerful blow that disrupts the monster's stance. After picking up a new gravity spell from a young boy, Chuya uses it to swiftly take down the enemy with a single strike. With the battle over, the group returns to the guild, where Yamina finally reaches the same rank as the rest of the girls. At the guild, Chuya takes a moment to ask the receptionist if she could help him put together a list of top recommended books so he can stock them in his personal library. The list ends up being pretty long, and Chuya doesn't have any leads on where to find most of the titles. That's when Yamina steps in and mentions that her friend, the princess, is actually the author of several books on that list. So, the group heads to her kingdom to buy them. While they're there, a young woman shows interest in one of the books Chuya has just bought, asking if she can have it since it's the last one in the set. Instead of handing it over, Chuya decides to make a duplicate of the book, making both of them happy. That's when Yamina reveals the twist: the young lady is the princess of the kingdom, and also the author behind the books. Back at the city library, the girls are thrilled about the huge selection of new reading material. Meanwhile, the hot springs have become so popular through word of mouth that they're booming. Everything seems to be going great for Chuya, who's now seen as a successful businessman and the most eligible bachelor around. Later, he goes on a date with Elsa, giving her a beautiful dress that fits perfectly, and it's clear that sparks are flying between them. Everything seems to wrap up on a high note. Or at least, it seems that way, until Linza shows up with a newly released book that's getting a lot of attention. The twist? It's written by Yumina's princess friend and is clearly based on Chuya, which makes him lose his cool. The following day, Chuya gets another large book order from the Regulus Empire and sets out to deliver it. But when he arrives, he walks right into the middle of a full-blown uprising. The Empire is being attacked by rebels trying to take over. Chuya steps in to help a wounded soldier, healing him and getting him to safety. He then asks the soldier to focus on getting the royal family out of the castle while he heads in to assist. Once inside, he discovers a girl in immediate danger, who turns out to be Princess Lucia. She's nervous around Chuya, not used to being around men who aren't part of her family. Together with her guard, they ask for Chuya's help to find and rescue the king and prince, who are believed to be in the royal chambers. When they get there, they find the king injured and learn that the one leading the rebellion is none other than the Empire's top general. Turns out, he's been planning this all along to take control. Just as justice is about to be served, there's another twist. The general has two powerful bracelets, one that lets him command a demon, and another that nullifies both physical and magical attacks while also absorbing any magic thrown his way. Although things are looking tough, Chuya decides it's best to pull back for a moment and come up with a proper strategy. But before making his exit, he takes the chance to throw some shade at the villain. With the king and princess already out of harm's way, Chuya now focuses on saving the prince, who, surprisingly, turns out to be the same young soldier he once protected during the earlier conflict. To stop this uprising, Chuya will need every bit of help he can get. The group prepares to move towards Regulus, and before setting off, they spend some time getting their gear and strategy in order. Meanwhile, Chuya talks with Rose, who reveals that due to someone's carelessness, some of the doctor's inventions were scattered across Babylon's islands. One of those items ends up being the enchanted bracelets worn by the rebel commander. Rose warns Chuya that he'll be running into more enemies armed with magical gear. After that, Chuya and the girls kick off their plan. While the girls handle the rebel soldiers, Chuya faces off with a powerful demon general who launches a relentless assault. Chuya narrowly dodges the attacks and counters with a heavy strike, using the same gravity-enhancing technique he'd used before, increasing his sword's weight to slam the demon into the ground, sealing his victory. With both the demon and the troops taken care of, there's just the rebel general left. Since brute force wouldn't work, Chuya goes with a rather nasty tactic, trapping the general inside a crystal box filled with decomposing slimes that give off an unbearable stench. And just like that, the rebellion's leader is taken down. The king celebrates their win, the prince is safe, and as expected, Lucia develops feelings for Chuya, even if he smells a little awful. The next morning, the king wants to reward Chuya and offers his daughter Lucia's hand to strengthen political ties. Lucia is thrilled, and Yamina, surprisingly, gives Chuya her blessing to add another fiancé. Since everyone agrees, Lucia becomes Chuya's fifth bride-to-be. Chuya doesn't seem too fazed by how fast things are moving, but now that he's engaged to two royal heirs, he needs a title to match. To fix that, both kings grant him a chunk of land right between their kingdoms, making Chuya a king himself. Without wasting time, he starts laying the groundwork for his new domain, starting with the castle. Rose already has a plan using her tech to get construction going, but the only hitch is gathering all the materials. In just 3 days, they manage to complete the grand structure. Chuya and the girls are amazed at how it turned out. Soon after, Lean stops by, surprised to hear Chuya's now a ruler, and lets them know that she'll be taking on the role of ambassador for her homeland. Originally, she was meant to act as an ambassador for the King of Belfast, but instead, she chooses to stay by our main character's side in Brunhild. Before long, Chuya sets up a portal that links directly to his mansion, which he promptly tries out. Not long after, Renee hands him a letter from the king. Soon enough, the king arrives, this time accompanied by an emperor named Rigric Refreeze. Both recognize that Chuya's reputation as a powerful adventurer has now spread far and wide. Rigric, a direct and no-nonsense man, gets right to the point. He's looking to build a positive alliance between their nations and even brings up the possibility of Chuya marrying his daughter. However, as expected, things between the younger generation aren't exactly smooth sailing. To solidify this alliance, they suggest that Chuya host a grand gathering in Brunhild to welcome all the allied monarchs. As Chuya prepares for this major event, another unexpected guest appears. Tsubaki introduces herself and offers her loyalty to Brunhild. Her homeland suffered due to poor governance, prompting many to leave, and she now seeks a fresh start. Given that Brunhild could certainly use extra hands, especially for defense, Chuya accepts the help. After all, building a real kingdom from the ground up isn't a small task. With the pressure mounting, Lucia steps in with a comforting gesture. She cooks a lovely meal and spends quality time with him, something they've had little chance to do since becoming closer. When the big day finally arrives, the visiting kings enjoy a peaceful evening, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. It's a hopeful sign, perhaps the start of a long period of peace. To close the night on a high note, Chuya puts on a stunning fireworks show that lights up the sky at just the right moment. During the celebration, he turns to Lucia, praises her efforts as his partner, and gently places a ring on her finger, marking their engagement. Days later, the group uncovers another Babylon site, this time hidden in a snowy landscape. Chuya activates the gate and finds himself on a new floating island, where he's greeted by Bellflora. Skipping the usual tests, Bellflora instantly confirms Chuya's compatibility and performs the genetic link. With that, the island, home to alchemy and research, becomes part of Chuya's growing domain. The girls soon arrive and, as usual, tease him about what happened with the island's overseer. Chuya admits they shared a kiss and a touch, much to the others' envy. With this, he now owns 3 Babylon islands, but he remains focused on locating the storage facility. Before diving into that, however, he takes time to master some useful spells, like flight, since aerial foes like the Phrases would be a serious challenge without it. Even though he pulls off the technique quite well, Chuya isn't fully used to it yet. The effort leaves him dizzy, and he ends up resting with his head in Elsa's lap. Once he's feeling better, he tries out another ability, levitation, which lets him soar through the air, allowing him and Elsa to prepare for battles alongside flying creatures. Soon after, Chuya is contacted by God once again. However, this time, he speaks directly with the goddess of love. She praises how he's been handling things with his wives but gently advises him to formally meet their families and ask for their blessings. So, Chuya sets out to meet the families of the girls. His first visit is to Yi's family. Her parents are supportive of the idea, though for a moment, it seems like her father might challenge Chuya to a duel. Instead, Yi steps forward, insisting that she's been by Chuya's side since the beginning and will continue to protect him. This act proves her devotion, and the parents happily approve of their bond. Next, Chuya meets the uncles of Elsie and Linz, since both of their parents have passed away. Initially, the uncles are skeptical, assuming Chuya would be an arrogant ruler. But after spending time with him, they see his modest nature and give him their support as well. As always, Chuya continues to help where he can, this time by capturing beasts that had been troubling a nearby village. Afterward, he reconnects with Endi and asks him some important questions. While Endi answers most of them, he avoids revealing details about his past. Chuya asks about creatures called Fronds, and Endi explains that they vanished around 5,000 years ago and little is known about them. Now they've returned, drawn by the presence of the King's Core, and are attacking humans because the sound of human heartbeats interferes with their signal. It seems the barrier that once kept these creatures, called Fries, away from Earth is weakening. No one knows how much time is left before it breaks completely, releasing these deadly beings. Following their talk, Chuya heads to the workshop to meet with Rose. He asks her about the current number of humanoid units produced and what materials are required to make more, provided they have the blueprints. As the threat of the Fries looms closer, Kohaku proposes summoning a divine creature to help scout the locations of remaining portals quickly. The summoned being is a phoenix-like entity that once forged bonds with the White Tiger and the Black Monarch. Recognizing Chuya's worth, it agrees to form a pact as well. Using its power, the beast sends out flocks of birds to search for the hidden ruins with incredible precision. Thanks to their efforts, Chuya receives word that the next Babylon island has been located, west of the Sandora kingdom. Although the area is known for being filled with monsters, that won't stop Chuya and his allies from moving forward. The wives join forces and take down all the monsters on their own, leaving Chuya free from the battle. While they handle the rough part of the journey, Chuya and the loyal bear stumble upon the Babylon portal, and luckily, it's the long-awaited warehouse. Inside, they encounter an android named Monica, who doesn't exactly greet them with open arms. Unlike the other androids designed by the professor, Monica decides to test Chuya's worth through combat. Just as she prepares to strike with her weapon, Chuya pulls one of his usual moves, slipping clumsily on the floor. Not impressed, Monica tries again, only to find herself caught in another absurd mishap. Eventually, Monica admits defeat and recognizes Chuya as a compatible partner. Accepting him as her master, she seals the deal with a kiss. She then guides him through the enormous warehouse, which turns out to be far bigger than expected. They reach a massive door, which Monica impatiently forces open. Behind it, they finally witness the legendary framed gears, giant mechanical robots built for battle. Chuya is eager to try one out, but there's a problem: the machines have no fuel. To power them, they'll need to locate the laboratory and produce it. Monica suggests they speak with Flora, who might know how to create the special fuel. Flora explains that the process requires rare materials, specifically ether crystals, which are difficult to find in the needed amount. Tired of the delays, Chuya seeks Abel, who says he can craft a similar kind of fuel using a large amount of magic stones. After a long search, they manage to secure one such stone, but they'll need to wait a month to actually get the fuel ready. In the meantime, Monica and Rose put together simulators for the framed gears, allowing everyone to train in virtual reality. The looming threat of Fry's invasion means there's no time to waste. Just when things start looking stable, Chuya is unexpectedly visited at the castle by Sushi. She pleads with him to make her his wife too. Recently, a prince from a far-off land sent a marriage proposal to her. Terrified by the rumors surrounding him, that he's a cruel man who mistreats women, Sushi is desperate to avoid the arrangement. She believes that if Chuya takes her as one of his brides, her father, the Duke, won't be forced to accept the prince's offer. Seeing how upset and scared she is, Chuya decides to help her. However, before taking any steps, he must figure out the best way to handle the situation, since this could lead to political tension between kingdoms. That very afternoon, Chuya finds himself in the company of the Duke when a young man named Cloud arrives, revealed to be the second prince of the Linher kingdom. Cloud has been sent as an envoy by his older brother to finalize a marriage arrangement. However, Chuya promptly declares that the marriage cannot proceed, as Princess Sushi is already engaged to him. When Cloud realizes Chuya is present, he respectfully kneels before him, Chuya's reputation clearly spreading far beyond borders. Cloud pleads for help, explaining that his mother is being wrongfully imprisoned due to the actions of the Prime Minister. This plea unveils the chaos and corruption currently gripping his homeland. Cloud, it turns out, is shunned by his royal family because his mother was a castle maid. As a result, he is denied any rightful claim to the throne. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister and the Queen have seized control over the king, conspiring to marry off the Crown Prince quickly in a move to strip the king of power. Realizing the depths of the corruption, Chuya decides to step in. The objective: rescue Cloud's mother and expose the Crown Prince, the Prime Minister, and the Queen for their crimes. Chuya, joined by Kohaku, Yae, Els, and Cloud, instantly teleports to the troubled kingdom. To avoid detection as they approach the castle, Chuya uses invisibility magic. Inside, they encounter the Crown Prince, who is revealed to own slaves, one of whom bears the same collar design seen in the desert. The prince scolds Cloud for failing to deliver Princess Sushi as expected. The sinister plot becomes clear: the Crown Prince intended to abduct Princess Sushi and enslave her, using her as leverage to incite conflict with Chuya's homeland. That night, the group sets out to rescue Cloud's mother, imprisoned in a tower under heavy guard. Using magic via Chuya's smartphone, they cast a paralyzing spell that incapacitates all soldiers in a single strike. Cloud's mother is freed without injury and safely hidden away. The next goal is to confront the mastermind behind it all, the Prime Minister. Chuya infiltrates the inner chambers, again cloaking himself with invisibility. He overhears a heated conversation where the minister expresses outrage over the mother's escape. Present in the room are the Crown Prince, the Queen, and the minister, who are plotting to pressure the king into handing over his authority and to capture Cloud. Then comes a shocking twist: the Crown Prince is not the king's biological son. He is, in fact, the child of the Queen and the Prime Minister. His claim to the throne is a lie. This truth explains why Cloud's mother was imprisoned. Cloud is the only legitimate heir. Fortunately, Chuya captures the entire exchange using his smartphone and later shares the evidence with his companions. The king had already been informed of the unfolding events, and during the coronation ceremony, he publicly declares his second son as the rightful heir to the throne. Those who had planned to challenge the rule are stunned by this revelation and immediately protest, claiming that tradition favors the firstborn. However, Chuya steps forward with solid evidence to support the truth, and justice will now be served by the soon-to-be-crowned new ruler. With the matter resolved, the kingdom of Linhia officially becomes a member of the Alliance of the Realms. Chuya, now relieved, turns his attention to the topic of the frame gears. But before that can happen, Sushi thanks Chuya for all he's done, and with a cheerful heart, she accepts the role of his sixth wife. Seeing how happy she is, Chuya warmly welcomes her into his life. A new chapter unfolds in Chuya's world, where celebrations are underway as Lion and Olga take their relationship to the next level by getting married. This inspires the other girls to start planning their own weddings, while Chuya finds it hard to believe he now has 6 fiancées. To unwind, the girls suggest he go on dates with each of them, since he's been tied up with so much lately. Before heading out, they decide the schedule with a game of rock, paper, scissors. Throughout the day, Chuya spends quality time with each girl, going shopping, enjoying sweet treats, and even dealing with a group of thugs who try, unsuccessfully, to rob him. It turned out to be a really bad idea for anyone to mess with Chuya and the women around him, especially when those girls easily took down the troublemakers in mere moments. The group had a peaceful day afterward, though Chuya clumsily forgot about Sushi, who became jealous and demanded a solo date with him. The next day, to make things right, he spent time with Su doing all the same things he had done the day before with the others. Chuya finally managed to make each of his partners happy. And just as he was settling into his role as a responsible future husband, he got exciting news: the liquid ether had been successfully extracted and was now ready for testing. Chuya chose Yae to be the first to pilot the frame gear. When it was Elsa's turn, she couldn't contain her excitement and jumped in to test the machine herself, though it didn't have much fuel left. Meanwhile, Rosetta crafted a new sword using Fry's crystal material and was already planning to build more gear using this powerful resource. To keep things moving, Rosetta asked him to gather orichalcum. Using his smartphone, Chuya quickly located some orichalcum golems and took off in search. Along the way, he discovered a village under attack by a group of Fries, and the local soldiers were barely hanging on. Just as the unit commander was about to be overwhelmed, Chuya arrived, swiftly saving her and eliminating all the attackers. The commander, who turned out to be the Princess of Lestia, was impressed by his strength. Chuya introduced himself as the ruler of Brunhild, and she immediately recognized his name, praising all that he had done across the nations. After retrieving the materials he needed, the princess admired the sword he wielded. She shared her wish to one day own a blade of such quality. Seizing the chance to form a strong alliance, Chuya gifted a few swords to Lestia's royal family. While dealing with a golem, Chuya gathered the final item he required to ramp up production. Just then, something unusual caught his eye: a deer guiding him toward a riverside. There, he discovered a young girl, badly injured and covered in blood. He tried to use his healing powers to help, but she only stirred briefly before collapsing again. Chuya rushed the girl back and had her treated by Bell using his alchemy tools. After being healed, the girl revealed she had no memory of who she was. Chuya assumed the medicine might have caused the amnesia, which made Bell furious. She challenged him to try her medicine himself if he doubted its effects. He then brings her into the room where the young girl had been resting. Due to her memory loss, she couldn't recall anything about her past, so Chuya offers her shelter in his home. Noticing her unique pink hair, he decides to call her Sakura. While staying at Chuya's place, it becomes clear that Sakura has a natural talent for singing. Even though her memories are still gone, her voice might be the key to unlocking her forgotten past. As she sings, everyone is moved by her performance. Meanwhile, the receptionist at the Adventurers Guild approaches Chuya with a new request to locate and eliminate a creature that resembles a bull. The problem with this beast is that it has the terrifying power to turn people to stone. Many skilled adventurers have already fallen victim to this creature's petrifying ability, and the guild fears the issue could grow worse if it's not dealt with soon. Chuya asks if there's no other capable adventurer to take it on, and the assistant explains that while the Princess of Lestia's grandfather is strong enough, his old age makes such a mission impossible. With few choices left, Chuya agrees to take on the mission. Aware of how dangerous the task is, he prepares carefully with his group of female allies. As a precaution, he uses a healing technique on their enchanted rings, ensuring that if any of them are turned to stone, the stored magic might save them. Upon reaching the monster's territory, the group strikes swiftly and with great coordination, overpowering the creature before it can fight back. Just before its defeat, however, the beast unleashes a final attack that turns Chuya's feet to stone without him realizing. It then triggers its regenerative powers. Suddenly, Lucia cries out in panic. Even though the bull's head is severed, its magical eyes are still active and continue to petrify anything in sight. The girls shield Lucia, whose clothes were destroyed by the petrification effect, while Chuya respectfully turns away to give her privacy. At that moment, another similar monster appears and locks eyes with Chuya. He starts to turn to stone again, but quickly counters with a new technique called Mosaic, which blocks the bull's magical eyes. The team successfully defeats the second beast, and their efforts earn them a hefty reward from the guild. Later on, Chuya uses his magic to heal all those who had been turned to stone. But in his haste, he forgets one small issue: Lucia is still without clothes. As Chuya continues helping the Royal Engineers with testing the new frame gear technology, word of his growing strength spreads far. Elsewhere, Hildegold's grandfather hears the latest news about Chuya and his advancements in weaponry. He glances at his granddaughter, who keeps sighing dreamily, and smiles knowingly as she looks back at him with wide, starry eyes. Meanwhile, Chuya continues working on improvements for his frame gears, asking Monica to tweak some features in the design. Suddenly, a message arrives at the castle. A mysterious visitor is waiting at the gates, claiming to be Chuya's older sister. So, what brings the goddess of love to Brunhild Castle? Turns out, she's taking a break and decides to drop by to see how Chuya's romantic journey is going, and to meet his companions up close. To avoid drawing attention, she pretends to be Chuya's older sister. But her visit isn't the only surprise waiting at the castle. Princess Hildegard also arrives, accompanying her grandfather on a diplomatic trip. After settling in, she gets curious about Chuya's powerful artifacts, weapons so strong they could level entire nations. Without skipping a beat, Chuya shows her the enormous mech-like machines and has Monica give a quick demo to show what they can do. Her grandfather, intrigued, asks if Chuya would consider lending the machines for defensive use should peace talks succeed. Chuya agrees and seals the offer with a handshake. Meanwhile, Hildegard challenges Chuya's best sword fighter, Ye, to a duel. Both display remarkable sword skills, and once it ends, Ye proudly declares she's Chuya's fiancé. This stuns the princess, who's visibly shaken due to her growing feelings for Chuya. He then admits he's already engaged to 6 women, including royalty from Belfast and Regulus. Seeing Hildegard disheartened, the group suggests she become the 7th fiancé. Her grandfather, however, insists that she must win a duel to earn that honor, and her opponent will be him. Before the match, Hildegard meets Chuya's other fiancés, who ask how her feelings began. She admits it was love at first sight and that she's thought of him daily since. Watching nearby, Sakura and Lean exchange glances, clearly wishing to be part of Chuya's inner circle. The duel begins. Hildegard struggles to attack, with her grandfather's experience keeping her on the defensive. Just when it seems like she won't stand a chance, Chuya distracts the old man by projecting an image of a woman, giving Hildegard the opening she needs to strike and win. She earns her place beside Chuya, though the image he used causes some jealousy among the other girls. Afterward, a conversation sparks about Chuya's life before they met. Since they're all destined to marry him, they're curious but know nothing of his past. That's when the goddess of love, still acting as his sister, shares a secret from his earlier life, his first love. Sensing trouble, Kohaku, ever the loyal companion, tries to step in and stop Chuya before things go too far. Unable to reach out to him, it becomes clear that the goddess of love is actively blocking any form of contact. Soon after, a phoenix informs Chuya that another ruined section of Babylon has been located to the south of Lestia's Night Kingdom. Unexpectedly, his future brides, Sakura and Lean, show up wearing Japanese school uniforms. The goddess of love had told them that Chuya had a soft spot for girls in uniforms, likely because his first crush, a girl named Shuko, wore one just like it. The group makes their way to the newly discovered Babylon ruins, split between 2 areas known as the Wall and the Tower. Both are protected by 2 unique caretakers, Preliora, and a much smaller one named Pamela Noel, who's surprisingly found asleep and, unlike the others, needs nourishment. Before the girls can hand over control of both the tower and wall to Pamela, she lays down some terms. She wants a comfy place to sleep and plenty of food. Chuya agrees to the deal and is granted authority through a kiss that transfers their power, officially recognizing him as someone they can follow. The area shows promise, as it can greatly boost the production of frame gears, refine liquid ether, and deploy the wall's defense systems. Preleora teleports the group to the floating island and immediately asks about Chuya's other wives. Yi explains that Sue had returned to Belfast to take care of some duties, but Preleora keeps pressing about the rest of the missing girls. Their chat is cut short when Kohaku arrives with a letter from the king, Yumina's father, announcing the birth of a new prince. Chuya heads to the royal palace to meet the newborn heir, and the king asks if he would be willing to name the baby. Chuya gives him the name, Yamato Ernest Belfast. The girls are all excited about the newborn, but what really captures their imagination is thinking about their own future children with Chuya. The caretakers, who had been in the bath, returned to share what they overheard. Apparently, Regina told them that Chuya would eventually father children with all 9 of his wives. They also reveal that Lean is the only one aware of this plan. Chuya quickly asks them to keep it a secret from the others to avoid any drama. Unfortunately, the other girls are already lining up to be next in line. While Chuya is talking with the caretakers, his future wives arrive again. Looking both excited and demanding, they point out that 2 names are still missing from the list of future wives. Later that night, a meeting is held with all the girls. They tell Chuya that there's no point in scolding him, adding 2 more fiancés isn't going to make a difference. However, they're still upset that he kept it hidden and unanimously find him guilty. As his punishment, they decide he has to kiss each of them. But before that, they attend the royal celebration for Yamato's birth. Chuya feels content, seeing that the kingdom is peaceful and that his future with his wives looks bright. Overwhelmed by joy, Yumina spontaneously gives him a kiss. Linza sees what's happening and playfully demands her turn too. Looks like Chuya's night won't end until he gives everyone their moment. But when he tries to kiss Lucia, she gets flustered and bolts. Meanwhile, Hildegard faints from nerves, and Yi, in a bizarre reaction, tosses him into the air. Elsa helps him back up, then gives him a solid punch, which oddly seems to be her way of showing affection. In the end, all the girls gather around Chuya, and the night wraps up with fireworks lighting up the sky, shared with his 9 companions. That's a wrap. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more anime stories and updates.